Well. Policy versus reality is our next conversation, particularly in the housing sector. As at today, Nigeria's housing deficit stands at 15.2 million units. In other words, that's a standardized figure established by the National Housing Data Technical Committee in collaboration with the World Bank. Now, to address this massive shortage, the federal government has laid out some rules and current national education agenda through the renewed hope housing agenda and through aggressive PPP, financial restructuring and legislative interventions. The country is shifting housing from a traditional welfare program into a highly regulated economic engine. Why it has taken us this long to get here is something that beats me, because a good number of us will remember First Act 77. And we remember First Act 77 because of houses. You won the house through some kind of, lottery or something, and then you pay over time for the facility. Well, we have this morning with us architect Ezekiel Etok, Executive Director, Estate Services at the Federal Housing Authority. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thanks for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you, and what a privilege to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let me start on a comical note. I'm sure you must have gotten so many requests for Oga. Now that you are there, can you give me a house?
On a serious note, yes, because even from your side, for over 30 years, I've been here talking, and now you get to where you're not supposed to be talking, you're supposed to be showing. And then people come with all manner of expectations. And the very first thing you want to think of is what they call management of expectation. And sometimes we tell people lies, we raise their hopes so high, and at the end of the day, we dash them. A man that was expecting 2 oranges and you give him 3 is very happy. But a man that you had promised him 10 oranges and you give him 5, he's not happy because it's like only half. So management of expectation is very important. That's why government must be careful in communicating their policies. I've been on this seat of housing advocacy for over 30 years. Way back in NTA Lagos, Channel 10, over 30 years ago, Real Estate This Week with Patrick Doll and everything. Now, I can say with every sense of responsibility. And please, let me say this. I am an appointee of Mr. President, but right here in the studio, I can get a text message, your appointment has been taken. And I'll go back to my constituency. Well, that means that I have a constituency I came from, and I'm going to go back to. So I'm going to be careful the things I say, so I don't mislead people just to gain favor of the system. That said, I want to say that for all the past 30 years, I think this administration has done more for housing than any other administration, and I will say the reason. They have been able to address certain fundamentals that have been the problems in housing for a long time, and that helps in laying a foundation. Now, that foundation is going to take a little bit of time, and I'll give you the timelines specifically. For instance, I'll take the Federal Housing Authority where I serve as an executive director. The moment we got in, the first thing the government did was to give us a dedicated ministry and a minister who was an architect, and now a minister who is an engineer. It helps a lot. The second thing was to set up the 2 main arms of housing delivery, Federal Housing Authority, Federal Mortgage Bank, to set them up strictly on professional basis and not on standard appointment. For instance, I didn't support the president. I was not in APC. As a matter of fact, I dragged APC, we dragged ourselves up to Supreme Court. So they couldn't reward me. They finally defeated me, so they couldn't reward me. But Mr. President said, as far as housing is concerned, I want this to be based on professional consideration. So the 5 of us, as the MD, Honorable Oyetunde Ojo, and the 4 EDs, are all professionals in the industry. Omowaye, he was a 2-time commissioner for works, and Dan Kane was an ED with Federal Mortgage Bank. And I came with a vast knowledge of the understanding of the system. So they gave us a dedicated ministry, gave us professionals as ministers, and set up the 2 arms based on professional consideration. Let me come specifically to FHA. When we got to FHA, we left, Federal Housing Authority for the past over 55 years have less than, they have about 50 estates, which is less than an estate a year.
Just 1 second, architect. Just 1 second. We'll come back to FHA. We have specific questions about FHA to which you can speak. But let's go to the issue of, you said the president set out 1 or 2 things, and that's admirable to hear coming from a professional and a critic such as yourself. We understand the creation of the National Social Housing Fund, and you've also spoken about the Federal Mortgage Bank and all of that. The Social Housing Fund, we understand, is for low-income and vulnerable groups in society. So the question then will be, how is this fund being protected from systemic administrative leakages, that could make it vulnerable to all kinds of things and not be able to achieve the intended specific goals?
2 things. The first is that I always like to lay foundations so that whatever I'm saying is interpreted within context. When my appointment letter came and I was given the post of an executive director, there were 2 things that were specifically mentioned in that letter. As a matter of fact, this is the first appointment I've accepted in my entire life. I've never accepted any appointment. I've always said, let me be a private sector person and speak my mind, so that, what I believe I say, what I don't believe I don't say. But once you're an appointee, they expect you to speak in a certain way, which, like I've just said, I will not speak that way. 2 things. One was that there was going to be a housing delivery production hub in each of the 6 geopolitical zones. And 2, there was going to be a social housing trust fund that was going to be set up by Mr. President. The next thing that happened was that Mr. President said he was unlocking about 2 trillion, and that out of that, we're expecting a large chunk to benefit Federal Housing Authority and Federal Mortgage Bank. This is how the system works, which Nigerians need to know. Why I will continue to be an advocate. Mr. President will make a pronouncement. It is up to us to be able to take those pronouncements and actualize them. That the role of Mr. President is the role of a visionary, a role of a willpower, a role of the person that sees the future, and the role of us are supposed to be the roles of people who are clairvoyant. We must be able to look into his brain, tap those things out, and actualize them. Right now, those lofty ideas are still in the process of incubation. And the incubation goes along standard government principles that takes what they call lines of least resistance. So there must be a strong advocacy from the generality of the people, because the funds are limited. The intentions may be good, but they can tell the president, sir, there is more pressure on this area. Let us divert this funds, or let us use this funds in this area. So we must continue to put pressure on advocacy for housing delivery, to put housing at the front burner. That is when government will operate. That is how government standard operates.
Are you
now,
saying...
coming back to the specifics...
Yes, go ahead. I was waiting for the specifics.
Yes, coming down to the specifics. The National social housing trust fund is, I happen to be part of the systems working it through different platforms to be able to actualize it. It hasn't come into fruition as yet, but I know that there is a lot, because you can't just pronounce it and it has to go through legal processes to give it legislative backings, and then comes out to either a set up specific institution, or as an authority, or as an agency, or as a department in any of the ministries. These are the different areas that is going through, and as at the time the former minister left, there was that platform set up to handle that, and the new minister happens to be someone who is making sure that government is a continuum. So I believe that in the next couple of weeks, the modalities would have been made public, and then the funding system and structure, but something will not change. And that thing is that I was privileged to be the national vice chairman for the national housing policy. And the national housing policy is very definite, specific on the target of social housing beneficiaries. Low income earners, if you earn zero income, no income earners. Low income earners, if you earn the minimum wage, and lower medium earners, income earners, if you earn less than 4 times the minimum wage. These are the categories that the housing policy has defined as potential beneficiaries of social housing schemes. Now, for those who are not on the informal sector, we have been able to program ways through the Federal Mortgage Bank on how you can show yourself to be in any of the categories. And I want to tell Nigerians something. Be careful the things that you say and the taxes that you declare, because at the end of the day, it can work against you. I remember specifically when we were going through the procurement processes, a guy that had had a turnover of over 2 billion, and he brought it and showed me. He didn't qualify for the category that needed you to have a turnover of about 500 million. And when he was asked the reason, because it was very transparent, they showed him that his turnover didn't fit into the and he said, no, go and look at your tax declaration. Your tax declaration says this is your turnover, and that's what we. So coming back to what I've said, there is no way that somebody that does not belong to that category is going to benefit from it, because the law is very, very stringent on it.
I think one of the issues really, Mr. Nyetoke, is that many people may not even be aware of this fantastic initiative that you're talking about. Okay, I'm also aware that the Federal Mortgage Bank is an age-old institution of the federal government. And until now that you're talking about it, I grew up, I'm sure you did as well, listening to the advert of the Federal Mortgage Bank and seeing it on television. Now, it's all quiet in the land. So what has happened and what is happening to the Federal Mortgage Bank? How do people access it? Because the gap the deficit that we are trying to close, 15.2 million housing units, that's a lot, and clearly the federal government can't do it alone. So what are the things, how can people come in, particularly through this Federal Mortgage Bank and other funding initiatives of the federal government?
Okay. If I have your permission, I would like to remove the cap of Mr. President's appointee and keep, and wear the cap of a nationalist who is an advocate for housing delivery. 2 things. The first is that we live in a very it's an irony, because Nigeria with 15 million housing deficit, and I've been around the world. I say that literally as a private citizen on housing, and the housing market in Nigeria is humongous. It's so attractive to everybody, but why don't they come? All we need, I don't know, you are from the much younger generation, so the night not and the telephone problems that we went through, you probably were still young, but of course I was old enough. Nigeria suffered from telephones and it was terrible. It took just one policy, and telephone was all over the country, and the federal government was making money, tons and loads of money. The next big thing is housing. The next big thing is housing, where government will make so much money they won't believe it. And all it needs is one policy. Ask one question, just one question. Why will investors not come to invest in housing in Nigeria? Answer is very simple, very straightforward. Anybody who wants to build a house wants to get returns on his investment, some immediate build and sell, some long term. They want to have this estate that all they want is just collect rent, including some rich Nigerians who want to just have things that they know that for the next 50 years, they just collect rent from their 50 houses. And they're good. They don't want the bulk money. They just want that incremental. Why are they not doing it? Now, just pause for a second and think of your hotel. Why are there hotels all over? How come? I just want to lay this a little far. Why are there hotels all over? Because by 12 o'clock in any hotel you are in and you haven't paid, they will they'll seize the key. And nobody goes to court. Nobody goes to any police station. If you go to police station, there's like, open the door, make it come out in thing. And they open the door, you remove your things. So people know that all I need is how I can get people to patronize my hotel, because once they are there, they will pay. If they don't pay, they will leave. That policy led me to proposing something like a free trade zone stuff for housing delivery in models of 50. It's not something we can talk here. In future, we'll talk about it. But coming back to your initial question, there has been so much silence about housing. Have you noticed that your salary cannot pay your rent? Think about it. Your full salary, 100% of your salary, cannot pay your rent. I just got a place for a family member in Logogoma, boys' quarters, and I paid 2.5 million. That comes to about 200,000 naira a month. And people are paying. People are paying. So the question is, why are people not talking about housing? In Nigeria today, housing is not the national agenda. People are talking about insecurity, which is true. People are talking about hunger, which is true. Food security. People are talking about power, which is true. People are talking about...
You haven't really spoken about the challenge of the Federal Mortgage Bank. People need to know how to approach access.
It all ties now. When you talk of Federal Mortgage Bank, because like I said, this sort of thing is you lay foundation, because a lot of times we just give answers that don't kind of connect. I can talk to you about Federal Mortgage Bank, but I was trying to lay a certain foundation. But coming back to Federal Mortgage Bank, now Federal Mortgage Bank and Federal Housing Authority before here now were very quiet. But now that is changing, because even Federal Housing Authority now have a program on television too, on NTA, on TVC, every week on Thursdays by 8:30, so people are getting more enlightened. But is that enough? No, it is not, which is what you have said. People need to know, what is it about Federal Mortgage Bank? Federal Mortgage Bank is that bank that gives you loan, a mortgage loan on single digit. But what you have to do first is you must be on NHF. That means you go to any primary mortgage bank, not any, those that are enlisted with Federal Mortgage Bank, like Federal Housing Authority Mortgage Bank, FHA Mortgage Bank. You go to them and you register, and every month you pay that 2.5% of your salary. Now, after 6 months of payment, you are qualified to take a mortgage loan. But the mortgage loan will depend on how much you say you earn. Because you can't earn, say you earn like a monthly. I'll tell you this, your monthly deduction when you get a mortgage loan cannot be more than 1/3. So if you are earning 100,000, they will only take 1/3 of 100,000, which is about 33,000. Let's just say 35,000. Now, if they took 35,000 naira per month, look, let me come to a figure I can handle a little easier. 30,000 per month. Now, at the end of 12 months, they would have collected 360,000 naira. At the end of 10 years, prorated, would have come to about 3.6 million or 4 million or 5 million, extrapolating, expecting that you make maybe increments and things like that. If in 10 years you can only give about 5 million, why do you want to go for a loan of 20 million? You won't be able to repay it. So there is what they call affordability profiling. So you're expected to pay. Now, some wise people, what they do is that they say, look, I'm earning this amount, yes, but you can see that instead of you taking 2.5%, I want you to be taking a higher percentage because I am also including what my wife is earning together. So at the end of the day, there's a track record that you have a certain capacity for a certain amount. So whatever is that capacity must correspond with what you want to get. Now that is on one hand. Those who want to get enlist and they pay 2.5% of their salaries, and over a period of 6 months, they become eligible, and then you now apply, and what you get is based on what I call affordability profiling. You can get more. But here is the catch. Assuming 1 million people hearing me today decide to join, and they are only contributing 2.5%. It is only those who have gotten the mortgages that will now put 33.3%. That means that the demand is going to far exceed what Federal Mortgage Bank has. This being the case means that we can now make a case for the federal government to recapitalize Federal Mortgage Bank and give it more capacity to give more loans to more people. That's mortgage loans. So this is a cycle that people have not been enlightened on, and if they are enlightened on, it is labor itself that will go to government and say, for our workers, we want you to be able to do, all this increase our salary, a minimum of 60% of your salary is going into housing. So you're a wiser person if you say, give us housing, even if you had a house before. Imagine that you have a second house and you you rent that house out. The amount of money you're going to make is going to far exceed your salary. So discussion on housing is one area that we've not had enough information on. If not so, Nigerians will network with Federal Mortgage Bank, Federal Housing Authority, the civil societies to tell government, put money. There will be those to say, government, borrow money and put in Federal Mortgage Bank to be able to give us a lot of mortgage capacity. Put more money in Federal Housing Authority, they will be able to give us a lot of houses. So when you have the houses and you have the mortgages, then you have the interface where is the civil service.
Let me come in here.
And there will be a housing boom.
Yes, so let me come in here. Well, yes. It's good you talked about information, and a lot of Nigerians, those who have written to us want some information this morning. They said, please, could you give us locations and states where those houses built for low-income earners are, and probably the agencies and workers occupying them?
Okay, great. I will say, as at today, Federal Housing Authority, and don't forget that the Ministry of Housing is doing their own part, but I am a friend, but not a spokesperson for the Ministry, because I know they have the Renewed Hope cities and the new Renewed Hope estates and cities. In some, they are building 1,000 housing units. In some, they are building 250,000. But it's across the country. So if you go to the Federal Ministry of Education, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, you'll be able to get that information. But where I sit is Federal Housing Authority. As at today, we have gotten land from 30 states. 30. Prime land. We have done groundbreaking in Akwa Ibom, we've done in Kaduna, we've done in Abia, we've done in Ogun State. We've done, well, the next week we are going to do in Oshobo. We should have done, but we just felt we should give some time, let it be through. So in this 7 we've done in Lagos, in Abuja, and we have an estate that we took up and we are in the completion. We've reached over 85% completion at Kubwa and Buhari, sorry, not Kubwa, Buhari. These are the things that if you come to Federal Housing Authority or you go to FHA Mortgage Bank, you'll be able to get this information. And Federal Housing Authority is not only in Abuja, it's in the 6 geopolitical zones. In the south-south, you have it in Port Harcourt. In the southeast, you have it in Owerri. In the southwest, you have it, the headquarters in Festac. By the way, Festac is one of our estates. Gwarimpa is one of our estates. Then you have it in Gombe, and you also have it in Kano. Oh. So these are the different places, depending on which zone you are, you can go to, and then you can find out the status where we are right now. Then very soon, we already have a website, but the MDCEO is revolutionizing all those things to be able to make sure that it aligns with our digitization, policy, where right now there are no property files that are hard files, it's all digitized, so you are sure of your title if you are doing anything with Federal Housing Authority. These are the foundations that have been laid, and the first stage to get land can take you 2 years, can take you 3 years, prime land. But in our first 1 year, we've been able to get it. Not only we've been able to get it, we've been able to do procurement for 17 states. And not only procurement for 17 states, we've been able to do groundbreaking in 6 states in less than 3 years.
Okay, I'm hoping, my apologies, Mr. Nyetuk. I'm hoping that there is a place where people can go to get all of this information, because if data does not really demonstrate that the Tinubu administration has done anything better than has been done previously, then the questions will continue to arise. There's a comment that Joke is going to read to you now that came from some of the people who are watching us right now.
Yes, so he says, he completely disagrees with you.
No, I'm talking about the first one. Okay,
which one? I think I read that one.
Yes.
Right. We've read that one about the low-income earners and public. Yes, I think we've done. But as I was saying, there's some people that are disagreeing with those numbers. So if we can get where we can get the information from, where people can go to actually verify this, and where they can get the information we'll get, because a lot of people actually don't get this advantage information, and they get left out of these things. People complain a lot, so I'm sure you'll hear some of that too.
Let me.
Yes, you.
Go ahead.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Yes.
Yeah. Let me say this. I think that there have been so much lies told by politicians that people, when they hear somebody else, the first thing is skepticism, and I don't blame them. You have said something, and we intend to take it, and that is, show us this fact and data. And I have said, go to any of our FHA estates in each of the regions. If you're in Abuja, come to FHA. Our address is 26 Julius Nyerere Crescent at Sokoro. If you are in Lagos, go to Festac. If you are in Port Harcourt, I think it's in the Secretariat. These are where you can go and verify whether FHA has done these things or not. And I'll end by saying that Architect Nyetok may be a political appointee, but he is first and foremost a Nigerian who will go back to the office of the citizen anytime his tenure elapses, or Mr. President feels I've done enough to move and give space. So, I think those are some of the pictures. Thank you. That is Federal Housing Authority. www.fha.gov.ng. www.fha.gov.ng. I think that is our website. I'm happy that people have set that up. It means channels is political, not technically serve you.
Well, there are many other things that we'll be able to take up with you subsequently, especially since, anyway, I'm not even going to put that here. We have to thank you very much. Oh, by the way, we can see that there are some hotlines on the website. I hope the lines are active, Mr. Nyeti.
Yes. They are active, sir.
Okay, all right. Architect Ezekiel Nyatok is Executive Director of Estate Services at the Federal Housing Authority. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thanks. God bless you. I appreciate it.
All right. So when we return, Sunrise continues.